Hi, this is my review of The Hunters. This is a game where you command a German U-boat during World War II from 1939 to 1943. It's published by GMT Games and is predominantly a solitaire game. This is the first game in the series that I played. You don't have to play them in any particular order, but I started with this one. So I found the rulebook. It's very well written. And it's very clear all the mechanics of the game. It describes all the different components, which we'll have a look at. Describes the mat that you use. Again, we'll have a look at that in a second. But yeah, it's very, very well written, and it really takes its time to explain all the mechanics that you would need in playing the game. Now, like a lot of these sort of narrative-led war games, I would say that there are certain things depending on the mission, etc., the dice rolls that you roll, you don't need actually all the components or all the individual mechanics. It depends on the sort of patrol that you're taking part in. But yeah, really great job, and very methodical. I would describe it written as. It really takes its time and details everything that you need to know as a player. I had no problems playing this game. I remember playing it for the first time. I actually have an older edition of this as well, and yeah, no problem at all. It actually, I don't know how many pages, 20 oddish pages. I would say the game is a very straightforward game to get into and learn and start playing. And once you've played through one of the missions, I'll describe it as, then it's very rare. I've had, from time to time you refer to the rulebook, but generally speaking, the game does a really good job of sort of explaining itself as you play through the different charts. And there are some examples of play as well. So it also interestingly gives some details of how you could play the game multiplayer and at a tournament, which I think would be awesome. I've never done it. I would love to play as part of the wolf pack, and I just think that sort of group collective play would be, I can imagine being really, really compelling and great. And I also want to call out the level of historic detail in the game. It's one of the things that I really enjoy about this game was the sort of the deep, rich history to it. And I've done a lot of additional reading about U-boat commanders of this period, and really appreciate the sort of inspiration the game gave me to do that. But it does, for example, give you all the example of U-boats and so forth, and there's different U-boat types. Plus, you've got all the top 10 U-boat commanders, which is great. Yeah, excellent job. And like I said, very straightforward game to get into. 28 pages, including the cover and back cover and all that sort of stuff. Very well laid out, very methodical. A really good example of a war game rulebook, in my opinion. So you also get a stack of, I'll call them the sort of submarine playmats. These are what you're going to be using throughout the game, and there's a wide variety included in the game for all the different types of subs. They have nuances to make each sub sort of feel a bit more unique. So, for example, this is a later sub. This is an earlier one here. They have different patrols that they're able to go on. For example, this sub can go on a patrol in Norway. And whereas this one has the Arctic. And they have a lot of the same patrol routes, so both can go in the Atlantic, for example. This sub can have a torpedo load of 14 torpedoes. The earlier one has 22. This one only has one aft. This one that has two, for example. So there are subtle differences between all the different types of sub, and very historically accurate, which I really, really enjoy. Then you have a bunch of table charts. So, for example, charts for the different ships that you can encounter, charts for how you run combat, and all the charts that you encounter in the game, that you use in the game, they're all very well laid out. It's very clear, the contents. So for example here, this is the encounter chart. So, sorry, actually, I'll flip it over for a second. These are the type of assignments that you'll be going on, and they vary for the time period. And once you know what your assignment is, your patrol assignment, then you go through a series of encounters and you roll to see what happens in those encounters, depending on where they are. Plus, you get, if you want to use them, you can use these really nicely done maps, just to give a little bit more sort of historical or flavour. You don't need to, because the same information is actually on the map, the submarine map. But I actually use these and enjoy using them. Just helps create that sort of tone and flavour for the game, which I really enjoy. Again, like I said, everything's beautifully laid out. It's very clear. You get a lot of content for what is a very focused subject matter, I would say, and very historical, which I really, really appreciate. So in this example here, this is the sub that I've just been using on a campaign that unfortunately didn't end so well, which I'll come to in a second. I've got a sub set up here. I'm on a patrol, and I've got an example of some of the combat. This particular sub in this example, I've got some steam torpedoes in the forward tubes, got a couple more in the aft tubes. I've got some reloads, but they're electric ones, and there's a difference between the electric and the steam torpedoes. It's taken some hull damage, so I've been depth charged from the enemy a few times. They've knocked out my radio. I've got a new target with a small freighter and a tanker. I've decided that the range will be close range, so I would roll to see if I've been spotted by the enemy before I start launching my torpedoes. It's at night. I am submerged. The targets have an escort with them, and you start to develop this sort of rich narrative of events that are happening through the chart, using those charts. And for example, how I use those charts, I'm using this player aid to determine, here for example, I'm at close range, so I'm using this this part here to determine what dice roll I need to get. I use this chart to see if any of them are duds, any of the torpedoes are duds. Then I'm going to roll on this chart to see if I've been detected, and so forth and so forth. If I manage to inflict damage on the ship, I use this chart to see how much damage. And then if the escort, for example, damages my sub, I'll use this chart on here. So it's not the case that you're constantly going from one sheet to another. A lot of the information is relevant on one chart. These two I always have in front of me, along with my log, which I'll show in an example in a minute. But component-wise, everything is excellent. All the counters are really nicely done, very clear, all the contents, and the game has this really nice pace. And like I said, once you've been on one patrol, and here's my patrol, I haven't put my, here we go. Let's say, for example, on my midway, on my Atlantic patrol. Once you've been through a patrol, you'll have you'll understand how all the individual mechanics work. But the truth of it is that it's simple as straightforward as going through one part of the chart to the next. The one thing I really like about this game is that it actually, on this sheet here, which is about the combat, it actually talks you through on the right hand side here all the steps that you go through in the combat. So you don't even need the rulebook open in front of you. If you haven't played the game for a little while, you literally go through each step by step, and it tells you exactly what you need to do. I've never played this game and thought to myself, you know what, I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to be doing here. I always know exactly how the game should be, how it's intended to be working. And I find it, and that I greatly appreciate. And it has that really good sort of pace to it as well. So this is the Hunter's Patrol log sheet that I was telling you about. And this is my personal record of my campaign with this commander and U-boat. In actual fact, you can upgrade different U-boats, but it's outside. And what this does is record every patrol that I've been on, every ship I've encountered, whether I sunk them or not, how much tonnage they were, what their name was of the ship, and the sunk tonnage there. But it actually records more than that. What this is for me is a very personal memory of the patrols that I went on, the and some of the nuances and events of those patrols. And everyone has different ways of recording the information. You can record it how you want. So, for example, on this patrol here, this was sort of later in the game. This was sort of around May 1941. I had one of the best patrols in terms of targets hit. Every single dice went my way. I had encountered two escorts, two ship, bunches of ships with an escort. Managed to evade all the escorts. They didn't hit me once, and I sunk every single ship, one after the other after the other. It was great in terms of getting that result. And then literally the next patrol that I went on was also quite successful. Sunk a convoy, evaded the escort ships, and then on returning to base, unfortunately was spotted by air attack and sunk. Every dice went badly for me, and my boat was sunk. And actually, there was a pivotal moment where I almost ran out of torpedoes, and I thought, this has been quite a successful patrol. Go back to base, rearm. I could have stayed out. I encountered another ship and I chose not to engage it. And I could have done, and that might have had a different result. So again, it is a record of the decisions and the luck, good and bad, that decisions I made, and how luck favoured or disfavoured those decisions. And for me, that's it's one of the things I love about this game. I decide on the torpedoes. I decide the range. I'm going to encounter the enemies. I decide, whether to stay if I encounter a ship and it's in the daytime, which is less favourable. I decide if I want to just follow that ship. I might lose it, but to swing it in my favour, I decide to follow it and turn that encounter to a nighttime encounter. I decide to push my luck and choose the range. This is a result that I might get spotted. If I get spotted, I'm going to, run the luck to see what happens. I have to wait it out. And again, it's very historically authentic. This game, like a lot of historical narrative-driven games, the more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. I've read quite a few books now on personal accounts of U-boat commanders. It helps me envisage in my imagination what's the crew are feeling, what's happening, the tension while you're being depth charged, the adulation for when you sink an enemy target ship, and all those sort of feelings combined with the mechanic. And I think for me, what this game does brilliantly well through the gameplay, through the methodical going through chart. There's not too many charts. Going through the charts, it's not a super dice chucky game. All those components combined enable me to envisage the action that's taking place because of the personal historical research I've done. So the more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. It's no surprise, you can probably tell, I love these types of historical narrative-driven war games. I feel that there are key decisions to make in this game. I feel that the game has a really, really, really good, fun, pacey flow, but with moments of reflection and great sort of, I would say historical moments that really give you pause to reflect on the history of these events. It's like I said, the game just serves that up for you. But like I said, the more research you do, the more you'll get out of it. I love looking back on these patrol logs. I think it's one of the things that makes the most impact to me as a gamer, as a history enthusiast, is just looking back and remembering the events that I took part in, remembering the highs and the lows. I really enjoy that. There is not a week goes by where I will not be either piloting a B-17 or the commander of a German or American or Italian submarine, and so forth, because I love these sort of narrative games so much. I find them really engaging. I find the mechanics of this one in particular very user-friendly, very detailed, very, very historically authentic, which I absolutely adore, but also at a great pace, which I love. So yeah, a high recommendation from me. And yeah, thanks for watching as ever.